Hey, Donna Fox here in my now dark studio because I have been working really hard to create a piece that it was an epic fail so that I could have this video to put out tomorrow. I would love for you to watch through it. I talk through my process and you can see all the mistakes that I made in the making of this piece. Okay, we're doing something a little different here today. I've been a little under the weather. My husband has a cold and I didn't get out to do an urban sketch this week, but I have been wanting to take some of my urban sketching and make it into nicer watercolor pieces. So this is a first for me, and it is, I'm just gonna try it here live, and if it really doesn't turn out, I can scrap this video, but I don't think I will because I think it's really important to have all of our lessons shown. After all, I'm learning how to become a professional artist. So I have this really cool sculpture piece here. I've printed it off in black and white, and I'll show you the color version here on the screen. What I want to do is just show you how I'm going to approach this subject and making it into a very nice watercolor painting. My ultimate goal is to start showing pieces, but in order to show pieces, I have to get them out of my sketchbook and onto paper in a way that can be nicely framed and hung. So like I said, we have been a little under the weather, so I have my hot water and lemon with honey right here next to me, and also another drink, and I have all of my supplies, which I will show you now. There's this double water container right here. I have my, these are Daniel Smith watercolor paints, and this is my swatch card that matches the watercolor paints. So I have these for when I'm ready to go to the painting area. I have a watercolor pencil that I'm going to use on this piece of paper. And then for later, I've got a 5H pencil, so it's the hardest lead I could find, which won't move when watercolor touches it. And then this is a wax resist crayon, which I will show you how to use later. I've got some bleed-proof white paint in case the wax resist doesn't work or I want to boost up the white a little bit, but I'm going to try to avoid using that. I have a ruler that gives me right angles, although there aren't all that many right angles here in this drawing. And then I have a eraser guide that will help. There's my typical purple case with my kneaded eraser in it. And I have some just sheets of printer or cartridge paper, and then also this nicer paper that is it's a paper block. I think this is Paul Rubens. In fact, I'm sure it's a Paul Rubens. Yeah, it's a Paul Rubens watercolor paper block, hot pressed 100% cotton, which means it's nice and smooth, and it will be good for drawing and painting on. And then I will also use some of this washi tape that I have here to give me some nice edges. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is really look at this drawing. And what I can see here is that I've got circles, so I might want to get a circle tool so that I can make these very exact, because these are pretty exact circles. So I may want to go grab my circle template. So I've got some circles here, and this is a cylinder that's been bent. So we've got a cylinder, and a cylinder has shape and dimension, it's really easy to articulate that because it is in fact broken into these small pieces. So adding these pieces are going to give volume to the piece. But all this is a cylinder. So we can draw a cylinder, right? More circles in the tires, another cylinder here. And for this truck, we've got basically a couple of rectangles. We've got slides here, there's a rectangle here. I hope you can see this blue watercolor pen right now. This process is just helping me find the shapes so that I can see the bigger shapes in the picture, and that will make the drawing process a lot easier for me. And here we've got another basically big rectangle. So there's one here, And then there's a smaller one here that's cut out a little for the wheel, but it's essentially a rectangle. And now let's look at how I'm going to simplify the background. I'm not going to include these tables and chairs. And even though this is my friends right here, I'm not going to include them as well. I want to keep it simple. I will probably keep the grass all one even color instead of these, I think it's rocks and then grass here. So I think I'll just make it all one flat color here. I've also noticed that there's not a lot of contrast in the values. There's some really bright white here. And then even though this part of the truck is white, it doesn't read as white on the photo. It's a kind of almost a medium value. So I'll keep that in mind, but I may still decide to make it white. It's bright right here where the sun is hitting, so obviously my sun direction is up here. There's my sun, and we can see that in the shadow right here. There's the shadow of the truck, so I want to make sure I get the shadow in. And then I like these trees in the background, so I just want to outline the shape of them. Outlining helps me see. So there's a shape here, big shape here. Here's the trunk. Now it's a tree, so it doesn't matter if it's exact, but I do want to get it pretty close. And I'll probably ignore all of this. Maybe I'll even bring the tree out a little bit when I draw it. I like these palm trees, so I will leave these in for sure. Maybe eliminate that little one right there and make this one big tree shape here as well. So here's my other tree. And then in the background, I've got a lot of stuff back here. There's chairs, there's steps, there's buildings, and I think I'm just going to simplify all of that into some sort of generic greenery in the background. So I'm just going to make it look like a park area and show the star of the show is this giant, really cool truck sculpture. I also went last week, see, these are my friends here, and we went to sketch last week, and I didn't record that. I just wanted to have fun with my friends and not really be focused on recording. So I didn't record it, but I will show you the sketch that I created from this angle at the table looking in this direction. And it's pretty cool because I could see a lot of this willow tree in my field of view and only about this much of the truck from here down. So it sort of looks like the truck is crashing out of the sky and through the trees. So now that I've got some shapes drawn, I'm going to move to regular paper. And now I'm going to kind of think about what it would look like on the page. I'm just going to sketch loosely. We've got this truck here, so I'm going to put that in, which is this shape. And then the next shape is, so see, I didn't get the shape quite right. If I look at it, if I use my ruler and look at it, I can see that I've got a shape that's 1.75 inches by 1.5 inches, okay? And when I drew it, I drew pretty much the opposite. I've got 1.2 by almost 2 inches. So now I'm going to use my ruler to just fix it. I'm correcting the way I look at things right now. So this whole first part of my process is really about making sure my vision is accurate. So that is actually what the cab of the truck is shaped like, not my initial instinct, which was to make it shorter and longer. So let's take a look at this one. This one is 1 1/4 by 1 inch high. And it starts just up a little bit. So I'll just go up right about here and do 1 1/4 by 1 inch. There we go. And my final image is going to be fairly close to the same size. This paper is a little smaller than regular printer paper. Don't you love my accurate way of measuring things? And I am going to put a border around it so that it can be framed and matted. But I do think I can put this truck right in the center of it without having to worry about size. So I can be fairly accurate in my measurements, which is helpful. I could have also shrunk this down a little bit if I could figure out how to do that, and use that to calculate the exact size. But the paper sizes are pretty similar, so I should be okay. Now, when I take a look at this cylinder piece, I'm going to sketch that one in next. The cylinder piece is, I'm going to measure from the top of the truck, because that's a spot that I have, to the top of the cylinder, which is right here, and it's about 2.5 inches. So I'm going to go 2.5 inches up. I'm just going to put a little mark there. Oops, 2.5 inches. Put a little mark there. And I'm going to look at this plumb line. So a plumb line is a straight line up and down. So I'm going to look at the tip of the truck, because we have that, and I'm going to go straight up, and you can see that the cylinder comes over a little bit more. So I want to measure that and just see how much space that is. That's about 3/4 of an inch. So I've got the tip of my truck. I'm going to go straight. Oh, I forgot to measure how tall it was. Oh, I did to this part, right? Yes. Yes. So, and that's the flat, that's the top part of this part. So I know it's this tall. And then I'm going to go straight up from here. So there's the point straight up, and it was 3/4 of an inch over. So I'll go to about here. Do you need to be this precise? Absolutely not. But I am really trying to get an accurate representation of this truck. All right, now this is going to curve around, and I can see that it is about 1/3 of the way up this block, and it's almost in a, if I bring this curve around, it's going to meet up with the bottom of the shape very easily. So I am going to draw my curve by lifting the bottom of the shape and drawing, just moving my hand, basically, drawing a nice curve. So that's what the curve's going to look like. This is 3/4 of an inch thick. So I'll go to about here, and I will do the same thing. It comes out straight to about here before this one. So right about here, and then swoops around and meets with the top of the truck. So the thickness is uniform and the same. So I want to just make sure that when I draw this curve, the thickness doesn't change as it goes around the curve and up into the top here. So thickness of that curve is the same. And then here we have another curved cylinder. So the thickness is going to be the same because it's essentially the same material. So this one ends in just a round bit and starts, basically they're connected. So it starts here. I can see that this is basically at the same level. It's just interrupted by the rectangle of the truck. So I'm just going to go up here for this straight piece, and it goes a little bit higher than the other one. So I've got a straight piece that comes up like this, and then we're going to curve around and make another cylinder. Let's see if I can do this one by hand. See, it ends right about where the flat part ends. So we've got, there's a rounded piece of it. Did I leave enough space? So I'm looking at the negative space right here between these two pieces. This shape right here. That's what I'm looking at right now. I want to make sure that there is a shape like that right here. And it looks like I maybe didn't go down far enough. Maybe it's about there. So this distance should match this distance. Let's see how I did. We've got 3/4 of an inch, and we've got a little over 3/4 of an inch. Not bad. So let's come back here and draw this line in. Now we don't see this line because it's behind the tires, but I'm going to put it there anyway because I'm trying to figure out the shapes right now. Okay, so there's that second shape. Now let's take a look at this one. This cab bed has, you can see a little bit of the front, so it's a little bit turned so you can see the front, and here you can see a little bit of the front. On this one you can't see any of the front, so it's a side view entirely, but here you can see some grill, so you know it's turned just a little bit, which means it's going to go down here. It's not a straight line. You can see the edge of the cab. This is pretty straight, that's pretty straight, and this, it's almost straight. There's a little teeny bit of an angle right there, but not so much. Okay, let's draw that in. If I draw a plumb line, so that's a straight line from the tip of this truck, which we have measured out. We know that that's right here. Well, now I've confused myself. Yeah, this is the measured line. All right, so we've got the tip of this truck right here. And if we go up from the tip, and just over a tiny bit, we've got this corner. So we'll go up from the tip. Up from the tip is right here. There's the plumb line. And over a tiny bit, we'll have this corner. But how far up? Let's measure that. 1, 2.5. 2.25, a hair over a quarter. So I'm going to get 2.25 and go a hair over, and right here is the tip of that truck. That's this point right here. So now we can measure from there. We've got an inch, 1 inch, and I'm eyeballing this angle, but I feel fairly confident in it because I took it from here and just moved it over here. We've got an inch of truck here, and then this bottom piece I'm going to measure as just one solid piece to 2.5 inches at the same angle, so I'm just going to move it this way. 2.5 inches. Is that right? Absolutely it is. Absolutely. Here's how you can check. Nope, see, not right at all. Not right at all, because if I plumb line this way, I can see that I'm well below this curvy thing. But at 2.5 inches, if I plumb this way, I'm at the top of the curvy thing. So at some point, somewhere, I went wrong. Does it matter? Probably not. But let's see if we can figure out where. So here at the top of the, this top corner of this truck to this bottom here, it's 2.75 of an inch. And I've got it at 2.5. So I mismeasured this, which is going to impact all of my measurements. because then everything is lower than it should be. See, now I've just made this too skinny. This is the wrong line. This is the right one compared to this. So I've made this too skinny, so this has to come up a little bit more, which may mean this needs to be adjusted, but I thought it was a little too big to begin with. So if I take a look at this, it is not quite 1/4 of an inch, and this is 1/4 of an inch. So now this space is actually more accurate. This shape right here is a more accurate shape. Ignore that one. I have another color pen here. Let's just make it clear. Here we go. This red, scarlet, which looks orange, is the correct line. There. We draw them here and here. All right, which means this, let's go back to this, at 2.5 inches. This is 2.5 inches, even though this line seems much larger on this page than it does on this one to me. Like, this is definitely a trick of the eye, because even next to them, this line looks larger than this. I've measured it. I know it's the same, but it is definitely impacting my brain. This one is just under 1.5 inches in this direction. So I'm just going to go under 1.5 inches and draw this line here. And then I can pretty much go in this direction. And we can see the top of this is matching up with the top of that. So that is looking about right. This comes in a little more, goes in this direction, cuts off the bottom, which is correct. After 3/4 of an inch, I'm going to measure that again. I sometimes find it easy to measure from the 1 inch part to the 2 instead of the edge. And I can see it's at just shy of 2/16 or 1/8 shy. So it was here to this inch right here, which is not where that meets. So I've gotten myself confused, and this is why I've got another piece of paper waiting here. Now, I might do this several times with a complex subject like this. I'm just going to try again. Okay. All right, now I feel like I can start drawing it on the actual paper. Okay, now I'm going to put some washi tape around the edges. 6¼ inches. And we have 6¼ inches. So if I go with the exact measurements, these tires are going to be bumping up against this line, which is a little bit freeing because it means I can't be trying to make this exactly proportionately accurate. I want to bring it in just a little bit so I can let go of the ruler and the measurements and really just go by the feel of what it is that I'm looking at and how I want to convey it on the page. I do think measuring was an important part of this, and I do think I'm going to go grab my circles because I'd like to be accurate about those, because they are tires, so they need to read as round. And everything else, I am going to be a little more freer and looser based on the frustration that I'm having, trying to comprehend the shapes, even though they're just rectangles, but they're rectangles at weird angles and different measurements, and things taper a little bit, and it's just hard. So I'm going to simplify it as much as I can. I'm going to start here. Are these tires the same too? Let's make sure. Yep, that's what I was just noticing. These tires are bigger than these tires. How is that even possible? But yep, they are way bigger. I'm going to put this tip of this corner right here. And that leaves me room for the box that it's sitting on. And this platform is below eyeball levels about here, so I can see a little bit of the top of the platform, but none of the sides. I'm looking straight at it. So here's the top of the platform, but most of that is just going to be covered by whatever it is that's holding this up. And then my first circle is going to start here. And I want to put it in. I'm going to decide to make it smaller. Let's see if I made a mistake by putting it. I try to make it a little off center, and it is. Yep, I did pretty good eyeballing it, because it's weighted more on this way than this isn't exactly the center of the space. So I did a good job of putting it to the side. Have I mentioned I'm not the best watercolorist? So this is all new to me, as most art things are. So I'm feeling really anxious and nervous right now. However, I am just happily going to proceed and move forward. I've got two water things here. One for clean white water and one for dirty water. They both look clean right now, but I'm going to wet my brush and get a fair amount of water on it, because I'm going to do a wet on wet technique. And then I'm going to, since I went pretty close to the edges, I'm going to crop this painting. So I'm going to just go to the edges right now. And I'm just adding clear water. Enough of it to wet the paper, not so much that it's drenched. I'm going to go right over this because I'm going for the sky. So I don't know what you can see from the camera, but there's water pooling up here. I want to lift it off, and I'm just letting the water go into the tree area as well. I'm trying to avoid the truck. I don't care so much if it gets a little bit on the edges of the truck, because I will be coloring that in. And I'm going to start with a very pale sky color. Over here, I'm going to go in and around the tree, because the tree's green, so it doesn't matter if we put the green in over the pale blue that I'm going to put on, and in the centerpiece as well. Let's make sure that's wet. Pretty close to the truck, trying to not really get on it. And I'm going to go down pretty far with this blue, where you might be able to see the sky peeking through the trees. There were places where we could see sky, and one of those places was right here. Right here we can see sky. So let's make sure we add that. Get a little sky in through that tree right here. This is just all dark with supports, so not here. One of the other places was, I'm looking at the image now and I can see we've got definitely sky in this window, but not in the other two. The other two windows are dark. All right, so now I'm going to mix a very pale blue, very, very pale blue. And I'm going to use Manganese Blue and add a lot of water. So I'm going in this dirty cup side because I had a lot of blue on my brush, and since it's the only color I've worked on, I'm just grabbing some water from there. So this is a very, very pale blue. And now I'm going to put it in all the places where I see blue in the painting. You can see a little bit of buckling right here. I didn't think that blocks did this, but you know, maybe I'm just using a lot of water. Not being a watercolorist, I'm not really sure if that is to be expected. I want to intensify this blue right in here. I'm going to add some stronger amounts of the same color in here. Just drop it in. And stronger amounts of the same color on this side as well. Not so much where the tree is, but just right around this edge here. Now the very top, because of atmospheric perspective, will be a bit warmer blue. So I'm going to dig into a warmer blue and put it at this very top. So I'll have to ask my watercolor friends about this buckling that's happening, because I really didn't think that happened with blocks. And what's going to happen is it's pushing the paint out towards the edges, and I don't really want that. Gosh, this is why I like urban sketching so much more than serious watercolor painting, because it seems like urban sketching is just so much more forgiving. I'm just going with less water and dropping pigment in here towards the top. Now, while that is drying, I'm going to come in along the bottom and start to add some greenery in the bottom. There's a row of kind of a tan color. Let me grab some of that. It's a little warmer. Add a little. Oops. So this is a combination of buff titanium and I think it's Aussie Red Gold. I unfortunately didn't grab my swatch card that has the names on it, so I'm going to put this on the bottom just for the contrasting color. I wasn't originally going to do it. I was going to make it all green, but I decided that I'm going to add in a little contrasting bit here, just to get some more visual interest on the space. And then I want a warm green. So that's going to be a bright green. I have this green gold color. I'm going to add in right up next to it. And then I'm going to progressively get closer to a true neutral green right here. And as I go brighter, I notice that this green is like no color found in nature. So I want to use just a little bit of red in with it to make it look more natural. See how much that's a much more natural color green. Let's get that in here. And now I want a very dark green. So this is the area under the trees. It's in shadow. Notice I just keep mixing into the existing green. It's how you get variations in color. So I want to get some of that in here. And I'm going to get pretty darn close to this truck. Okay. Are we having fun yet? All right, I see a lot of this dark green in the willow tree, and even a darker green. So this green that I'm adding now is like a bluish green as opposed to this warmer green. See, this is warmer, more yellow, and this is more blue. So I'm gonna mix in some of the more blue. And now I've got a warm green for the center parts of this willow tree. And I'm just gonna start making some slashes. It's a willow tree, which means there's lots of hanging parts. So there's the center of that willow, and then I'll do the center of this willow. Now I'm being careful not to go over my truck with a color this dense. Maybe a little up here. Then I'm going to lighten up this green a little. So now I've got a pretty dirty brush. So I'm rinsing my brush, but then I'm also rinsing it in plain water so that I can get something closer to a clean color. And then I'll come over here with this brighter, it's called Hooker's Green, which is a nice Kelly green. I'm still going to mix it in with this so that I have something that's a little closer to nature again. And I'm going to add a little more of that red to dull it down a bit. And now I'm going to come back in here around the same area with more of these little slashes, but with this brighter green. And the other green is still wet, so it's going to blur together in some places. I'm going to rinse it out again and add some of this. Remember the bright green that we used? Well, that's going to come in around the top where the sun is hitting the branches. We've got the warmest of the greens. And it's okay when green hits blue. It just makes a different shade of green. So we're adding in some light. I'm starting to just use this green to fill in some of the gaps. I still want to keep a lot of light, but I also want to show a lot of light coming through this tree. While this green is still wet, I'm just going to rinse this brush. I'm going to take a thinner brush and start putting in some of the trunks. I'll just use a plain brown sepia, probably a dark brown. And I'm going to build this trunk right here. And I want it to mix with the greens a little, so that's why I'm doing it while the greens are still wet. Make it look more natural and blend in with the environment. I used to think tree trunks splayed out at the bottom, and I used to always draw tree trunks all splayed out. Most of them just go right in the ground, especially if they grew from saplings. So if a sapling was planted, the tree trunk is very likely going to just drop right into the ground without splaying out a little bit. which I found interesting. That's something I didn't learn until I started painting. I just kind of want to put a trunk back here too. You know, my inclination is still to make it just a little bit wider at the bottom, like there, but they don't really operate that way necessarily. In the picture, I can see little bits of trunks in through here, so I'm just gonna add little sticks. Little sticks. I feel like Bob Ross when I start talking about little sticks. All right, we have very, very dark green all in here. I'm sort of waiting for these dashes to die a little bit, and I will come back in with another layer of the darkness. Let's get a couple of sticks in here. Really fine if we can. Okay, I hit this with an air dryer, and I'm gonna, I'm not really happy with any of it, which is, no, not surprising. I will remind you again, a new watercolorist. So there's much that I don't like. I don't like that these didn't really play with each other. I thought that they'd kind of mix together a little bit more. Maybe they're both granulating colors and that's why there's the modeling, but maybe it's because the paper was too wet. I'm going to go in with another layer of these colors and see if I can improve the smoothness of my sky. I'm going to start with this darker, warmer color at the top in a stronger concentration, so less water than previously. Now I'm actively just overlapping the edge of this so that I'm forcing them to play together. I lost a lot of the pretty blue sky in here, so I'm just gonna put in pieces, little windows. I'm probably going to come back in with some grays and add lots of shadowing here, but the layers are what makes it look more natural, although watercolor definitely less is more, and I'm not sure I've learned that lesson. All right, I'm going to grab my darkest green and mix it with a little bit of brown, and here's where I'm going to bring in the really dark areas around here, around the trees, the bottom of the truck. So notice the original dashes aren't really disappearing as I add this color in over it, and that's because I let it dry. So it's activating a bit, it's starting to be seen a little bit, blur, the edges are getting blurred, but I'm not really removing any of the work that we did previously. I don't like this line that I did. All right, let's let this dry and see what happens for a bit. I think I can move on and work with a smaller brush now. I want to get some of these tires in because I feel like adding all the darkness around the tires is going to help me. And I'm going to mix some black and some prism violet shadow violet together. So here's black. don't use black watercolor very often. A lot of watercolorists would say not to use black, but these are tires. They are black. They're 100% black. But I'll add a little violet to the mix just to warm up the black and make it a little more interesting, not so flat. I have a lot of water on my brush and I want to get more detailed. So I am going to rinse and dry the brush. I don't need to clean it because I'm going to use the same color, but I don't want all that water in the brush. So I just want to dry it a little. And now I'm going to come in and start working my way around these tires. I've got some other darks here that I want to get in these windows. And then I want to get the really darks in. So I'm going to add more black to this. And maybe some really dark, cool blue. So that the darkness recedes a bit. Really, really dark. Add a little red to that to really drive it home. I just contaminated my color by not cleaning this before I put it in here. I'm just gonna grab that. I'm not sure you can tell that I'm having a meltdown. I am having a meltdown. This is not going as well as I would like it to. I want to rush through the rest of it because I am frustrated and I just want to acknowledge that. This doesn't look anything like I had hoped it would. And I'm just gonna, I don't have a video for tomorrow. I am committed to posting videos and this is just gonna be what it is. So yeah, that's what's happening right now. Me being stressed out. This is sitting on a bit of a kind of a gray cinder block. So I'm gonna find a warm gray to put this block in. I really should have protected that one from the green, because that's looking muddy and weird, but I'll just come back in later with a more opaque color to kind of fix that up, I think. Or I might just give up on this whole thing, call it a night. Okay, let's get in some silver. And I want to find my, yeah, that's it. Okay, this color that I'm using is Moonglow, and I'm going to use the dirty water with it because I really want just a warm gray. So I'm going to put a lot of water on it. I think you can see my palette. I hope you can see my palette. I'm going to start putting these in, just painting them in. I'm going to paint them in section by section, and that'll give some natural variation. So notice here, I did not paint the sections in. I'm starting to phone it in. I'm getting tired, very tired. But I'm stubborn and I want to post a video tomorrow, and I'm going to post this massive failure. And I'm trying not to panic. I forgot to put sky in this window. I'm not giving up. I want to give up, but I'm not giving up. Now, this is white, but it does not look white. And remember here, it is not bright like this is. And even this is not white, it's more silver. So that's what I'm going for here. Theoretically, it should look white by the time we're done putting all the other stuff on, but you know, we'll see. And the cab is a nice blue color. Trim right here of chrome, so I'm just gonna do that. And see, here's where you can really tell that I'm getting tired, because I should not have put a different color in right next to the blue that I just put in, because that's a recipe for it to leak and run everywhere. That same blue, truly the identical blue, is on this truck, on these stripes. There's a stripe here. And see, this one is dry. Stripe here and go all the way over to the cylinder, so it's not bleeding everywhere. And around that stripe, where else is this blue? At the very top up here. Of the cab is blue. Basically all the places this one is white, this one is blue. Most of these silvers I'm using Moonglow as a base, and then adding in a little blue to make it cooler, a little purple to make it warmer, a little black to make it darker. But it all starts with Moonglow, which is a pretty granulating color that this is close to Moonglow with his, it's like pinks and blues and just really cool. Basically anything metal, it's my favorite color to make metal. That are now bleeding into the paint that I just put in. One starts to wonder just how many mistakes I can make in one painting. I really don't like this line that I have here in the grass, so I'm going to see if I can do something about that. By just layering over it and trying to smooth it out. I want to keep a distinction between the grass and the pebbles, but I don't want that line to be there. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to smooth it out because it is dry. It is very dry. I'm just putting a little buff titanium over this block to give it a little more definition, so that it reads a little more like a concrete block. I might be done. I could go much longer, but this is already feeling like it's not what I had hoped it would be. It doesn't look as amazing as it is in my head. You know, it's not a bad painting, really. It's just not a good painting either. But you know what? I'm gonna post it because I'm learning, and it is important for you who might also be learning to see that it's okay to have one that isn't great. And it stings a little because I was hoping for a piece at the end of this that would have been something that I could submit to shows, and I'm not quite sure I feel like I could do that with this one. Yeah, so this is my finished piece. And if you've watched this far, You are an absolute MVP winner. I appreciate you sticking around. I know this is going to be a long video. I'm still going to edit it tonight because I'm determined to post it tomorrow. And I am going to let this sit and be, and I don't know, maybe tomorrow I'll see if there's something else I can add to it, but chances are I am not going back to this piece. I'm going to call it done, imperfectly done, and chalk it up to experience, and maybe I'll try this subject again when I have, might be interesting to go back after a year and see if actively building my skills for a year can really improve this piece more than it already is. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.